Sitting on my bed one morning, I fell into a deep reverie. What is behind the darkness of closed eyes? This probing thought came powerfully into my mind. An immense flash of light at once manifested to my inward gaze. Divine shapes of saints sitting in meditation posture in mountain caves formed like miniature cinema pictures on the large screen of radiance within my forehead. "Who are you?" I spoke aloud. "We are the Himalayan yogis." The celestial response is difficult to describe. My heart was thrilled. "Ah, I long to go to the Himalayas and become like you." The vision vanished, but the silvery beams expanded in ever widening circles to infinity. "What is this wondrous glow?" "I am Ishvara. I am light." The voice was as murmuring clouds. "I want to be one with thee." Out of the slow dwindling of my divine ecstasy, I salvaged a permanent legacy of inspiration to see God. He is eternal, ever new joy. This memory persisted long after the day of rapture. Another early recollection is outstanding, and literally so, for I bear this scar to this day. My elder sister Uma and I were seated in the early morning under a neem tree in our Gorakhpur compound. She was helping me with a Bengali primer what time I could spare my gaze from the nearby parrots eating ripe margosa fruit. Uma complained of a boil on her leg and fetched a jar of ointment. I smeared a bit of the salve on my forearm. "Why do you use medicine on a healthy arm?" "Well, sis, I feel I'm boiled tomorrow. I'm testing your ointment on the spot where the boil will appear." "You little liar." "Sis, don't call me a liar until you see what happens in the morning." Uma was unimpressed and thrice repeated her taunt. An adamant resolution sounded in my voice as I made slow reply. "By the power of will in me, I say that tomorrow I shall have a fairly large boil in this exact place on my arm, and your boil shall swell to twice its present size." Morning found me with a stalwart boil on the indicated spot. The dimensions of Uma's boil had doubled. With a shriek, my sister rushed to mother. "Mukunda has become a necromancer." Gravely, mother instructed me never to use the power of words for doing harm. I've always remembered her counsel and followed it. My boil was surgically treated. A noticeable scar left by the doctor's incision is present today. On my right forearm is a constant reminder of the power in man's sheer word. Those simple and apparently harmless phrases to Uma, spoken with deep concentration, had possessed sufficient hidden force to explode like bombs and produce definite though injurious effects. I understood later that the explosive vibratory power in speech could be wisely directed to free one's life from difficulties and thus operate without scar or rebuke. Our family moved to Lahore in the Punjab. There I acquired a picture of the Divine Mother in the form of the goddess Kali. It sanctified a small informal shrine on the balcony of our home. An unequivocal conviction came over me that fulfillment would crown any of my prayers uttered in that sacred spot. Standing there with Uma one day, I watched two kites flying over the roofs of the buildings on the opposite side of the very narrow lane. "Why are you so quiet?" Uma pushed me playfully. "I'm just thinking how wonderful if the Divine Mother gives me whatever I ask." "I suppose she would give you those two kites?" My sister laughed. "Why not?" I began silent prayers for their possession. Matches are played in India with kites whose strings are covered with glue and ground glass. Each player attempts to sever the string of his opponent. A freed kite sails over the roofs. There is great fun in catching it. Inasmuch as I and Uma were on the balcony, it seemed impossible that any loosed kite would come into our hands. Its string would naturally dangle over the roofs. The players across the lane began their match. One string was cut. Immediately, the kite floated in my direction. It was stationary for a moment, though sudden abatement of breeze which sufficed to firmly entangle the string with the cactus plant on top of the opposite house. A perfect loop was formed for my seizure. I handed the prize to Uma. It was just an extraordinary accident and not an answer to your prayer. If the other kite comes to you, then I shall believe. Sister's dark eyes conveyed more amazement than her words. I continued my prayers with a crescendo intensity. A forcible tug by the other player resulted in the abrupt loss of his kite. It headed towards me, dancing in the wind. My helpful assistant, the cactus plant, again secured the kite string in the necessary loop by which I could grasp it. I presented my second trophy to Uma. Indeed, Divine Mother listens to you. This is all too uncanny for me. Sister bolted away like a frightened fawn. My mother's greatest desire was the marriage of my elder brother. When I behold the face of Ananta's wife, I shall find heaven on this earth. I frequently heard Mother express in these words her strong Indian sentiment for family continuity. I was about 11 years at the time of Ananta's betrothal. Mother was in Calcutta, joyously supervising the wedding preparations. Father and I alone remained at our home in Bareilly in northern India when father had been transferred after 2 years at Lahore. I had previously witnessed the splendor of nuptial rites for my two elder sisters, Roma and Uma. But for Ananta, as the eldest son, plans were truly elaborate. Mother was welcoming numerous relatives daily arriving in Calcutta from distant homes. She lodged them comfortably in a large, newly acquired house at 50 Amherst Street. Everything was in readiness. The banquet delicacies, the gay throne on which brother was to be carried to the home of the bride-to-be, the rows of colorful lights, the mammoth cardboard elephants and camels, the English, Scottish, and Indian orchestras, the professional entertainers, the priests for the ancient rituals. Father and I, in gala spirits, were planning to join the family in time for the ceremony. Shortly before the great day, however, I had an ominous vision. It was in Bareilly on a midnight. As I slept beside father on the piazza of our bungalow, I was awakened by a peculiar flutter of the mosquito netting over the bed. The flimsy curtains parted and I saw the beloved form of my mother. "Awaken your father," her voice was only a whisper. "Take the first available train at 4 o'clock in the morning. Rush to Calcutta if you would see me." The wraith-like figure vanished. "Father, father, mother is dying." The terror in my tone aroused him instantly. I sobbed out the fatal tidings. "Never mind that hallucination of yours." Father gave his characteristic negation to your new situation. "Your mother is in excellent health. If you get any bad news, we shall leave tomorrow." "You shall never forgive yourself for not starting now." Anguish caused me to add bitterly, "Nor shall I ever forgive you." The melancholy morning came with explicit words. "Mother dangerously ill, marriage postponed, come at once." Father and I left distractedly. One of my uncles met us en route at a transfer point. A train thundered towards us, looming with telescopic increase. From my inner tumult, an abrupt determination arose to hurl myself on the railroad tracks. Already bereft, I felt of my mother. I could not endure a world suddenly barren to the bone. I loved mother as my dearest friend on earth. Her solacing black eyes had been my surest refuge in the trifling tragedies of childhood. "Does she yet live?" I stopped for one last question to my uncle. Of course she is alive. He was not slow to interpret the desperation in my face, but I scarcely believed him. When we reached our Calcutta home, it was only to confront the stunning misery of death. I collapsed into an almost lifeless state. Years passed before any reconciliation entered my heart. Storming the very gates of heaven, my cries at last summoned the Divine Mother. Her words brought the final healing to my wounds. It is I who have watched over thee, life after life, in the tenderness of many mothers. See in my gaze the two black eyes, the lost beautiful eyes thou seekest. Father and I returned to Bareilly soon after the crematory rites for the well-beloved. Early every morning, I made a pathetic memorial pilgrimage to a large shioli tree which shaded the smooth green gold lawn before our bungalow. In poetical moments, I thought that the white shioli flowers were strewing themselves with a willing devotion over the grassy altar. Mingling tears with the dew, I often observed a strange, otherworldly light emerging from the dawn. Intense pangs of longing for God assailed me. I felt powerfully drawn to the Himalayas. One of my cousins, fresh from a period of travel in the holy hills, visited us in Bareilly. I listened eagerly to his tales about the high mountain abode of yogis and swamis.